Welcome to the Mirpuri Foundation webinar marking World Environment Day. Today, we will discuss the Mirpuri Foundation Sailing Trophy, a sustainable and health-controlled event, and the importance of organizing such events for our ocean and for our environment. You will be able to hear in this virtual roundtable the president of the Mirpuri Foundation, Paulo, the president of Clube Naval de Cascais, Gonçalo, Esteves, and representing the sailing community, the skipper of the Mirpuri Foundation racing team, Yoann, Richomme, and professional sailor, Frederico, Melo. It's important that we know that this pandemic, unlike many of you have heard on the news, was not good for the environment. It placed climate change on hold, environmental commitments are being delayed, and even communication campaigns have had to wait given the outbreak. But now the world is starting to open up again, and organizing events again, especially one like this, environmentally friendly, is a challenge the Mirpuri Foundation is glad to take. So for opening remarks, I give the word to the president of the Mirpuri Foundation and also medical doctor, Paulo Mirpuri.
Good morning, Hannah. Good morning, Frederico, Gonçalo, and Yoann, and hello our audience today. Thank you for being present at this webinar. This race will be the first edition of the Mirpuri Foundation Sailing Trophy, which is a perpetual trophy about ocean racing, so offshore racing. And this first edition will take place in Portugal, in the beautiful bay of Cascais as the departing gate, and sailing south to Sesimbra on the coast of Arrábida, which is one of the most stunning places for sailing here in Portugal. And this will happen on the 27th of June. And then on the 28th of June, the boats will be sailing back to Cascais. This race has several objectives. The first one is to give an opportunity for the sailing community to go back into the sea. We all know that we are in a new phase of the pandemic, and it's important that we transit from the lockdown into our normal lives, but we need to do that in a responsible way. And the Mirpuri Foundation wanted to participate in that effort of showing the sports community how this could be done in the responsible way. And this race is a lot about that. The second is will be a race that will bring to the sea different types of boats and different classes of boats. We will have sailing and racing from fast racing boats like the Volvo 65s to cruising boats that will be present or RC class, as well as classic yachts. So from the public perspective, I think will be also a very interesting event. But above all, we want to show our audience how to fight a crisis without creating another crisis. And what we have been doing for the last 3 months was a bit of that. We were fighting a very serious pandemic that spread all over the world. We have not seen this in many years, at least with this degree of extension. But at the same time, we create other crises. We created, first of all, an environmental crisis, because all the materials that we have been using to fight this pandemic, like plastic gloves, like the gloves, in billions of numbers are now starting to ending up into the ocean. And of course, the human being is always a bit selfish, but we cannot forget that we are not alone in our blue planet, and we need to look at the consequences of the pandemic on the environment. And we want to explore and increase the awareness of that aspect. And also we created a financial and economic problem for many communities around the world. So it is really important that we go from phase 1 to phase 2 in the responsible way, and that's what we are trying to lead in with this race.
The Mirpuri Foundation has a deep and long-lasting connection to Clube Naval de Cascais, but this will be the very first sailing event and pioneering, in a sense, for you, Gonçalo Esteves, president of Clube Naval de Cascais. What do you think makes this event different and unique? And also, do you think the Mirpuri Foundation Sailing Trophy will be raising the bar for other events and even setting the example for them?
Good morning, Hannah. Good morning, Paulo, Frederico, and Yoann. Thank you very much for the invite to be here. So, answering to your question, for some years now, Mirpuri Foundation is one of our main sponsors here at the club, along with Rolex, Cascais Municipality, and some others. Mirpuri Foundation started sponsoring Clube Naval de Cascais 6 years ago, and starting with a sailing school teaching not only to sail, but also to be a sustainable sailors for the future. With the planning of the last Volvo Ocean race, the campaign by Mirpuri Foundation, the Turn the Tide of Plastic, for us, it was extremely a short lead time to join the campaign to the club, and as a result, we could not have this partnership as we would like. With this new edition to come, we finally were able to properly attach the campaign into the club. The boat has been here in Cascais since October last year, and we are very honored to have the cruise shore based in our club as well. That gives us the recognitions and awareness, not only for the club members, but also for the all behind Cascais. So with such an important alliance between the Clube Naval de Cascais and Mirpuri Foundation, Clube Naval de Cascais had stretched Mirpuri Foundation some ideas to set together a new yearly trophy. And it was exactly what happened. We sent out a long-lasting reputation in sailing world with a perpetual trophy that will keep the name and the values of the Mirpuri Foundation in our club for many generations to come. And the idea was explaining to Paulo Mirpuri just 4 days before the country lockdown, having in mind 2021 sailing calendar. And here at Cascais, we are very fast. However, Mirpuri Foundation and Paulo Mirpuri were even faster than us. And Mirpuri Foundation decided to go ahead with the trophy already this year and use all these new limitations in our favor and not against, and show the world that we can be pioneers on doing a coastal offshore trophy race with these new conditions.
The registration fees of the sailing trophy will be covered by the Mirpuri Foundation and donated to a marine conservation project. Do you think this is a key factor for participation?
No, I don't think that paying the registration fee it's a subject at this level, but the cause of being donated to the beautiful marine life and add the value to donate to the marine conservation project is extremely important additional assessment. That's for sure.
Well, with us today, joining from France, is the skipper of the Mirpuri Foundation racing team, Yoann Richomme. But first of all, as a sailor, Yoann, how do you see this race? How do you rate it in terms of importance to the sailing community?
Hi, everyone, Paulo, Anna, and the others. Of course, it's hugely important to get back on the water. As Paulo said, we went through a crisis, and I don't think we should stop living after this. We need to get everything back in order, and to have a club, a sponsor, and an organization working towards organizing this, basically first event back on the water, first major event, is a huge sign to everyone that things are under control and that we can get back out and we can get back living a somewhat normal life if it is well managed, of course.
Obviously, the coronavirus took a big toll not only in the environment, but sailing world. The sailing world was also affected. Do you see this race as a path for recovery?
Yeah, definitely. We need to get the boats and the teams running again, and of course we need event organizers to set up events so that the campaigns can live, and for our campaign, of course, to communicate, which is an important thing and an important message to communicate. So it definitely is a pathway to recovery.
Well, joining from Portugal, professional sailor Frederico Melo, I ask you the same questions, the importance of this event, of this race for the sailing community, but in specifically for the Portuguese case.
Good morning, Anna, Dr. Paulo, Gonçalo, and Yoann. Yes, it's spectacular to have a race like this in Portugal. It's such a big relief after so many events were cancelled or postponed for next year. So for us in Portugal specifically, we should feel very lucky to have such a beautiful event in a beautiful time of the year and the best conditions in the world for me personally.
Well, I ask the next question to you both again, Yoann and Frederico. The entire world has been going through this pandemic, adjusting procedures. This will be the first health-controlled event and race in the world. We have a medical team allocated to this event. We know this will be a first for the world, but do you trust this to be a decisive factor for success? Yoann.
Well, for sure, for somebody like me coming from abroad, and for most of the team that will be on the Ocean Race 65, it's important for us not to bring in the virus or not to get contaminated while we are in Portugal. So being checked for health and COVID positive cases is of course a very important thing, and I think we should really be careful about all this, of course.
Frederico.
Yes, definitely. It's this as a factor for success. We all want to feel safe, and we after this pandemic we cannot be in fear. So to have all the safety procedures in place will make people safe and enjoy the event at maximum as possible.
Well, it is time to direct, Gonçalo, that question to you as well, as the leader of Clube Naval, of the Yacht Club, in this case, Clube Naval de Cascais, as member of an elite, the distinct elite of the sailing clubs. Do you think the way we are organizing this event will have a positive impact on the sailing community, but also on the way events are organized all over the world?
Well, Clube Naval de Cascais is one of the first clubs, if not the first one, the first club of the leading yacht clubs to establish a big sailing event after the lockdown, as the previous guests mentioned. Clube Naval de Cascais is an active member of the ICOIC, that is the International Council of Yacht Clubs. That is an alliance of the 44 of the most 50 important and relevant clubs in the world, from Oakland to San Francisco, and definitely in our alliance we are the first ones. And the Clube Naval de Cascais is having a significant positive impact among our world-leading yacht club partners with this event and this organization. So definitely we are very well in the picture.
Well, the president, as mentioned, the president of the Mirpuri Foundation, Paulo Mirpuri, is also a medical doctor. So we can say that we definitely have the expertise to lead this endeavor in a successful way. Can you guide us through some of the medical procedures that will be put into place for this specific event?
Yes, the Mirpuri Foundation wants to show how to go from phase 1 to phase 2 in a social responsible way. And to make this happen, we put in place a team of medical doctors as well as paramedics and epidemiologists, and we are following through that team the pandemic evolution on the daily basis, from 2 months ago when we announced the race until the race really takes place. And their job is to follow how the pandemic is going in Portugal, in the Cascais region, but also on a worldwide basis, since we have a lot of guests coming from outside Portugal. And their job is to apply the right measures at the right time. So this can go from very stringent measures like sanitizing the boats before the race, in between the races, the facilities that are going to be used pre and post race, to medical checks to all the participants, and the degree of the measures that will be applied to the race will depend where the pandemic will be at that week. Fortunately, in general, in Portugal and in the municipality of Cascais, we have seen a very positive progress. So that's a good sign for all of us. But even so, the virus is still around, and we need to be careful. We want, of course, to show the world that it is possible to go back to normal life and in a responsible way. And at the same time, we want all the participants to feel they are in a safe environment. And they can be sure that when they are participating in this regatta and in this race, they are sure that people around them have been properly tested and they are okay. On the testing basis, we are using as on the first layer serologic testing, which is a very fast testing that can give the results in 10 minutes. If there is any positives, there will be a second testing, if then it will be optional, of course, if the participant wants to do it, to make sure that it is a confirmed positive. And then once this is clear, the participant can go into the race safely, and knowing that the people around him have been gone through the same process, so will be a safe, completely safe environment for everybody. I wanted to emphasize that this job will not be possible without the strong commitment from the yacht club, Clube Naval de Cascais. It played a very, very important role, and in accordance of its target and its job to bring the sailors back into the water. So if I remember correctly, Clube Naval de Cascais opened in a very responsible way, bringing first the sailors into the water on boats with only one sailor, keeping the distance between the sailors, etc. So in a very responsible way, and we follow this very closely. And we are really proud to be a sponsor of Clube Naval de Cascais. In everything they do it properly, they do it very professionally, and in a very safe way. So we are proud with this agreement. And also I would like to leave a word also to Cascais, the region where Clube Naval de Cascais is based, and where part of the Mirpuri Foundation is exercising its activities, which has also shown a lot of commitment to make this race possible. So there was a kind of partnership between foundation, yacht club, and the municipality, so which is basically representing the governmental side, to make this race possible.
Well, thank you, and thank you obviously to all of our partners. The Mirpuri Foundation has become a well-established name in the sailing world since the Volvo Ocean Race RC44, and because of our campaigns, Turn the Tide on Plastic, Save the Coral Reefs, now recently Racing for the Planet Against Climate Change. As founder and mentor of all these initiatives, bringing science and sustainability back into the sailing world, how do you analyze the impact of raising awareness through sport?
Sport is one of the best communication tools with a large audience. And sailing sport in particular, because is obviously a very friendly, environmentally friendly sport, because we move and we compete with the boats moved by wind only. It's even more appropriate to communicate environmental messages. So we have invested heavily over the last few years in using the sailing sport as a communication tool to the environmental campaigns. And also because we believe that by bringing more people into the sailing sport, each one of these new sailors, each one that typically start at the ages of 6, 7, 8, 9, with the optimists, and the number of them here in our country through the school of Clube Naval Cascais, they become ambassadors for the seas. So we are increasing the number of ambassadors. We have a program with the yacht club where each boat, each optimist, where the kids start sailing, has the name of a fish or a marine species that is in danger of extinction. And this alone is just an example, a simple example, how our children get aware through the sport, aware of the problem. They become aware this fish might be gone when I'm an adult if our parents do nothing. So there is a reverse pressure from the kids to the parents, which is very interesting in many aspects, including in marine conservation. So the campaigns that we have started a few years ago on marine conservation through the sailing sports, including the Turn the Tide on Plastic campaign, the Save the Coral Reefs campaigns, the climate change campaign, we believe that they have been quite successful in terms of the target audience reaching. We are happy with that, and we will continue to use the sailing platform in the future as a communication tool, and we will continue to promote the sailing sports all over the world, and in Portugal in particular.
I direct you one more question because we obviously chose this day for the webinar to mark World Environment Day, June 5th, and the Mirpuri Foundation Sailing Trophy will be a sustainable event, as all the events organized by the Mirpuri Foundation. But what does this mean in practical terms for those who haven't yet been on a Mirpuri Foundation event?
So this means that we will ask and provide information to all participants. And again, I would like to emphasize that we are having from ORC class, from boats from 30 feet to over 100 feet, from racing boats to cruising boats to classic boats. We are ensuring that each team will be participating with a very low carbon footprint and with a very low or neutral environmental impact. So, for example, what this means is that teams are motivated to move within the race village and to the hotels using not using cars that burn fuel, but using electric cars or bikes or just walking for example, the plastic is completely banned from this race, both onshore and in the sea. No plastic bags, no plastic water bottles. So every every piece of plastic of single use will be banned from this race. And through these gestures, there will be an impact for the future. There will be a legacy. And from the past experience, we have seen that many teams, once they go through this kind of event, they tend to perpetuate this kind of behavior in other races and pass the messages to other races where they will be participating. And this way, what will be a few dozens of boats racing in the Mirpuri Foundation Sailing Trophy last week of this month will enlarge to thousands and thousands of boats as these boats go sailing and sailors go sailing in other places around the world.
Okay, well, I take these words to ask you, Frederico, as you were part of the Turn the Tide on Plastic team in the last edition of the Ocean Race. The Mirpuri Foundation was the founding partner of the team. This was indeed a sustainable team, raising awareness of ocean plastic pollution all over the world. And this obviously, as mentioned, will be a plastic-free event. I'm sure sailors are by nature linked to the environment, but what did this last race and this plastic-free race change you when it comes to ocean plastic pollution and your own behavior?
It changed me a lot, Anna. By racing around the world, sailing around the world, I witnessed in firsthand the big problem we create in our oceans by using massive single-use plastic and creating really danger for our marine life. So it was very hard to see and witness, but at the same time was also good to see the impact that like campaigns like Turn the Tide of Plastic had in several communities around the world, creating awareness. And I can say nowadays that at least in the sailing world, all the events are really environmental friendly. So it's good to see the impact is having really good results.
And Yoann, you are the skipper of the Mirpuri Foundation racing team, and that's a big responsibility on your side, because you're not just representing a brand, you're representing the environment itself. How will you take this role, your role, into this race, the first official race since you've been announced as skipper?
Yeah, of course, it's first a lot of pressure to run a crew on such a great racing boat, but it's also a lot of pressure to carry this message on the side of our boat, racing for the planet. But it is something I take at heart. I'm very passionate about the sea, the environment, and the future of our planet. And I myself do everything I can. It's still not enough as for most people, but we don't do enough for the environment. And my role as skipper is to show everyone on board and to lead everyone on board towards racing with the environment in mind. And as Frederico said, no single-use plastic on board. And sometimes we did it in training the other day with a few months ago with Frederico, but it's picking up trash in the sea and stuff like that, and not letting our behavior ruin the environment. And if we can make a difference as a team and show this to our followers, then I think we get our message across.
And you have a young child, so you do that at home as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's for them that we do it. We know that if we don't fight today, it will be too late for them to fight. So we always have our kids on our mind, and we always think that 50 years ago the planet was not in this state. There wasn't so much pollution around, and if we imagine this trend continuing, of course we know that we're going towards disaster. So we need to change this, and the change needs to happen now. And of course we're changing this for our kids. Yes.
Gonçalo, as president of Clube Naval Cascais, as the hosting entity of this event, what are your expectations for this race, for the Mirpuri Foundation Sailing Trophy? And do you have a word of advice for participants who haven't yet registered in the race?
Well, Anna, first of all, let me take the opportunity to thank to Paulo Mirpuri the generous words that he had previously with the Yacht Club. I think that both Clube Naval de Cascais, Mirpuri Foundation and Paulo Mirpuri himself, we are trying to raise the bar here in Cascais with the club, with the sailing scene and with the sustainability. I think that we are making a great team to put Cascais even more on the map that it is now. But now answering to your question, Clube Naval de Cascais is one of the world leading yacht clubs in the world. And almost every leading yacht club of the world hosts an important offshore race. Clube Naval de Cascais doesn't have one yet. Our idea with the Mirpuri Foundation Trophy will to be drive that achievement. We'll start with this year with a format that is something between a short offshore race and a big coastal race. It's approximately in the middle. And we hope that some more nautical miles can be added in the next coming editions to validate the trophy as an important world offshore race event. This setup was chosen to attract as many boats as we can. And in the first edition, as Paulo already mentioned, we're going to have loads of different boats. And we really want this. We want to have all the boats that we can have, that we think that are eligible to be present in this event, and giving the sailors a first-class event already in this first edition, with everything the sailors like apart the competition. We are all sailors, and we all know that we like the shore facilities, we like the beer, the social, the food, the beverage, the merchandising, etc. Everything plastic free, as Paulo mentioned before. And as you can imagine, if with the present limitations we are able to deliver all this, that is an enormous challenge to the organization. I think that everyone will understand that this is a trophy for the coming years to come to be an important race in Cascais, and that is our goal.
Well, the notice of race is published online, but do you have any additional details you'd like to give about the regulation or prize money or awards for sailors?
A part of everything that have been already told, Paulo already explained. The course is a very beautiful course. Frederico already also gave his opinion about the amazing conditions that we have now. People are craving to sail, and I think that people want to sail. And it's going to be we take this slot, and it's going to be a great opportunity. And a part of that, Mirpuri Foundation also had give and add value to this trophy. That is the prize money. That is something that we are not used to have it in Cascais and in Portugal. So we're gonna have prize money for the first to the fifth, and we start with 16,000 euros for the first and 8,000 for the second, and so on, which I think it's quite relevant for the actual conditions. And I think that that is also a very important add value to this event.
Thank you. Well, as president of the Mirpuri Foundation, and that's a foundation focused on making the world better for future generations, do you think the Mirpuri Foundation Sailing Trophy sets an example for the world, raising awareness through sailing, through sports, and engaging new people with the ocean, especially since we are allocating funds towards a marine conservation project?
Yes, and that's our expectation. That's where we are working, and we believe we will achieve those targets. Most important, the registration fees. Yes, they will be going into marine conservation programs, and one of them will be the Coral Reefs Save the Coral Reefs program, and because of that, the United Nations has been willing to and confirmed already to be associated with the race and with our team through their Glone Gone campaign for about the need to conserve the coral reefs which is a very, very important marine ecosystem that represents only 2% of the ocean, but most of the species, a very large percentage of the marine species, actually depend on the existence of healthy coral reefs. So if we spread the world in one, if the words about the need to change or the need to continue the efforts to act in a more responsible way towards the environmental issues that the oceans are facing. And if on top of that, we can really invest the registration fees in actual programs that will have a material impact on some of these programs, I think we depart with very good expectations that the race, on top of the sport results, which of course are also very important, will be successful.
Well, today is World Environment Day. That's why we're here in this webinar, and we are aware now more than ever of the importance of living in harmony with nature. So I ask Yoann and Frederico, from a personal but also a professional perspective, how does it feel to be back sailing again? Yoann.
It definitely feels good, that's for sure. I've been out a few times and having been locked in the house for more than 2 months. We get to see why we enjoy this sport so much, and why we love it, and why we want to make a living out of it, be real professional sailors. And in the past few weeks, we had beautiful weather over in France, and I've had some of my best cruising and best sailing I've had in years, with the time to enjoy it as well, and the time to reflect on what it's like to be a sailor today. And I think it's a privilege of this time to think over these kinds of things, because we know that once everything goes back to normal, we're gonna be rushing into every project like we usually do, like everyone, and having no time to concentrate on the things we liked. And yeah, it's been great to be back out sailing, that's for sure, and I want to keep doing it.
Well, and going back sailing in Cascais, that's the perfect location. Frederico.
Yeah, it was amazing being back. I think I don't remember any time that I was not allowed to go in the water for so much time. So it really makes us value the ocean and our nature and how important it is to us. So yeah, we really have to come with a different mindset and really protect our goods.
Well, marking World Environment Day and leading up to the Mirpuri Foundation Sailing Trophy, what's expected to be an outstanding race, I ask the president of the Mirpuri Foundation, Paulo Mirpuri, for some closing remarks.
Thank you, Anna, for the opportunity. A lot have been discussed during this webinar. I would like to emphasize two very important aspects of this conference. One is about the sport itself. Is really good, and I think everybody feels the enthusiasm about getting back to the sea, getting back to the race, getting back to the competition, getting back to feeling the wind and the sand and the salt water in our face. So and see how the teams are after several months of lockdown. There is a lot of enthusiasm on the teams, on the sport itself. Everybody wants to see how the other team is racing against ourselves. What is our level after the lockdown? So there is a lot of expectations in the sport. The departure will be on the coast of Cascais. So the boats will start along the coast of Cascais, and in front of the beautiful bay of Cascais, they will turn south typically with the maneuver opening the spears. Of course, depends on the winds, but that's what everybody expects given the predominant winds in Cascais, and is a beautiful scenario to be seen from the sea and as well as from the land. And I think will be a really beautiful event, a very competitive event. We have very strong teams in the playground, teams coming from abroad. So there is no advanced winners. It will be tough. It will be tough competition. And I'm sure that Frederico and Yoann will need to fight very hard against other very strong teams that will be racing on this trophy. I would also like to emphasize the diversity of boats, the classic boats, the cruising boats, the racing boats, which adds value to this race. So the second aspect is about the environment and how important is the contribution of this race to increase the awareness about the environmental issues. And this is especially important in the times that we are going through, where billions of plastic gloves, plastic gowns are going into the ocean, and we need to be careful in order to avoid to create a crisis on top of another crisis. So increasing the awareness of this potential issue is important, and more than increasing the awareness is discussing solutions, how we can deal with this, how we can do properly waste management, and even more important than increasing the awareness and discussing possible solution is acting, really do something to correct the problems and keep our oceans healthy, and keep increasing the marine reserves up to 30% of our oceans, which is the target that have been established by many foundations around the world, including the Mirpuri Foundation, together with the United Nations.
Well, that's a great message. Well, before ending this webinar, I would like to thank everyone for joining us today. Obviously our guest speakers, amazing guest speakers, but also all of you attending this webinar, everyone joining us today to mark World Environment Day. Thank you, and thank you for supporting the Mirpuri Foundation Sailing Trophy as a sustainable and health-controlled event. Thank you, and have a good weekend.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.